Hello to all you out there in YouTube land. Welcome back to my office. This is the office that I use at Zion Covenant Church. And as we've been saying for the last several videos, each pastor's office is different. It has more than just books and papers. There are usually all sorts of different knickknacks and artifacts, and they all obviously have their own unique story. Even for those of you who've been in my office before, sometimes it's just a little overwhelming to look around. So this is an opportunity for me to highlight a few things, what they mean to me, how I got them, and what the backstory is behind them. So the object that I would like to show you today is this. And you might be saying to yourself, what is that? Why in the world does Chris have a bronze mouse playing a violin in what looks like formal wear? And that is an excellent question. I'm so glad you asked. This is actually one of my more recent objects in my collection. This was given to me by the family of Dan Ognovic right at the end of his celebration of life ceremony. So many of you know, we've talked about in a multitude of ways Dan's sudden passing. Dan was one of these guys who was musically connected to anything, everything, everyone, every place. So we certainly did not have a corner on the Dan Ognovic market, but we were very honored to be asked by the family to host his celebration of life, just to have a place where people from across the county could gather and remember Dan and tell stories about Dan. And the Golden Cordeliers sang and just sort of honored Dan in his memory. But during his celebration of life, the family showed me several of these identical bronzed mice playing a violin. And they had only made a handful on some 3D printers. I believe one family member wanted to do it specifically to honor Dan. And they distributed them at the end of the celebration of life ceremony. And I just happened to be one of them who was given one of these in memory of Dan. And that's exactly what it says. If you were to see this in my office, and it's on a slightly higher shelf, so maybe you wouldn't be able to read the base of it, but it does say, in memory of Dan Ognovic. Now, I'm sure there's a specific family story. I was probably even told that day about why this specific configuration of things, mouse, formal wear, violin. That was a very busy and emotional day, and I don't remember all of the insider clues. But when I look at this little statuette, what I think of is the mouse very much reminds me of Dan's playfulness and his sense of humor. The fact that he's wearing sort of a suit reminds me that Dan really was the consummate musician. He could play everything from a formal concert all the way down to somebody's 92nd birthday party. Dan loved music, and Dan himself was very musical. So the violin was one of the instruments that Dan played. He also played piano, he also played organ, and I believe there were some other instruments mixed in there. So whenever I see this, I see it as a great culmination of all of the things that I really loved about Dan. For me, the things that made Dan so important and so memorable, and the things that I miss the most about Dan, are his musicality. Obviously, he could play anything, anywhere, anytime. He didn't need the music. So he really was just this deep reservoir of musical knowledge and ability. But I also loved Dan's sense of humor. He was so quick-witted, so sharp, that you never knew exactly what Dan was going to say. And it didn't matter if you bumped into him on a stage or in a grocery store. He always had something funny to say, and you really had to be paying attention. You really had to be on your toes. And the other thing that I really deeply appreciated about Dan is just how much he loved people. Dan very much enjoyed bringing happiness and joy to people. So again, if he was playing your favorite hymn, if he was playing your favorite song from the 60s, if he was playing the favorite theme song from your television show that you grew up with, or if he was just playing pop trivia somewhere, Dan really seemed to get great satisfaction out of bringing joy to people. And he was pretty selfless in that way. So also, if you're in my office and you're looking at this particular little figurine, you also won't notice, because it's on a slightly higher shelf, that underneath there is a little card that reads, "In memory of our beloved friend and gifted musician, Dan Ognevic, there will never be another like you. Deeply missed by your Zion family." This was the card that was put on the flowers that we had. Our office ordered flowers for the Sunday after Dan's passing, and we had them on the platform in our sanctuary just in memory of Dan. We often would do this after a funeral. Leftover flowers from the family were brought into our worship setting. The office staff decided to do that. And when they were cleaning up afterwards, somebody saved that card, and now it is kept with my little figurine in memory of Dan. So the next time you're in my office, if you're in my office, look around and see if you can find this little guy, and then maybe dredge through your memory banks to come up with some of your favorite stories about Dan, and feel free to share them, because I never get tired of talking about Dan. There are lots of other things in this office, though, and the plan is episode by episode, video by video, to show you a little bit more, and again, to tell you the fascinating history and story that lies behind these things. So until the next time, I hope to see you either on the other side of this screen in person, or I'll see you back on the screen, back in YouTube land again.